Storing CBD oil really isn't hard at all. I don't want you to read this or listen to this video thinking, wow, I have a lot of things to do to extend the shelf life of my CBD oil. That's not the case. CBD does provide a lot of benefits, but it doesn't come cheap. As with any other purchase, we want you to make sure it's kept in a way to maximize the shelf life and the money you spent. It's really easy to keep, but there are a few things to keep in mind when storing your CBD oil to extend its shelf life as long as possible. In this article, we'll be looking at some methods you can use when storing your CBD oils. By the way, I'm Dale Hewitt, founder of New Phase Blends, and I look forward to discussing storing your CBD products. Here's some things to consider when storing your CBD oil. If you don't already know, I used to be in the Army. The military is great at making acronyms to help people remember all of the required information better. For the discussions of storing CBD oil, I've come up with a useful one, and it's called HALT. Heat, air, light, and time. These are all factors that contribute to the deterioration of cannabinoids. The best way to store your CBD oil is in an environment that's cool, dry, and dark. A lot of users recommend the refrigerator because it provides a cool, airtight environment with optimal conditions. So let's go over the HALT acronym. That's H-A-L-T. H stands for heat. There really isn't much to mention about heat besides the obvious. Excess exposure to heat isn't necessarily good for storing your CBD oil. If you can, store the CBD oil in an area that's about room temperature. CBD oil is made by heating up a carrier oil, New Phase Blends uses MCT oil, to roughly 70 degrees Celsius and mixing in different cannabinoid extracts. If the oil is exposed to high levels of heat, it can come out of suspension, which just means the carrier oil will separate from the CBD extract, leaving an inconsistent product. The A in HALT stands for air. It's one thing to avoid heat and sunlight, but it's another to prevent air exposure. After all, the air is found everywhere. Although CBD oil products are contained in airtight containers, a certain level of air exposure cannot be avoided since you have to actually open the bottle to use the product. As the air gets inside, it will cause the product to deteriorate over time. The exposure to oxygen results in what's called oxidation stress, and it's the same reason you cannot eat leftovers that have been sitting in your refrigerator for 3 months. Storing your CBD oil in a cold environment, is it good? When you refrigerate CBD oil, it helps to prolong the shelf life for sure. And while the fridge is possible as a good storage solution for CBD oil, you should keep in mind that each method of storing CBD oil has its pros and its cons. Each of them provides an environment without light, heat, air, and moisture. The refrigeration may result in the thickening of the oil due to excessive cool temperatures, which would make it harder to get in and out of the 1 milliliter dropper. Storing your CBD oil at room temperature, you don't need to refrigerate your CBD oil, but it's important for you to be very careful when you do store it at room temperature. Generally, you should always store CBD oil at a temperature of around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Excess exposure to higher temperatures will lead to the deterioration of the CBD in the bottle and also some of the terpenes that are in the bottle. Some safe locations for storing CBD oils are in dark pantries, like the closets and drawers. The temperatures typically remain cool in those areas. The important thing to do is to prevent anything to do with sunlight, such as windowsills, countertops, and high shelves where there's an exposure to the sun. It's also pertinent to avoid areas where artificial sources of heat may be a problem. Like, keep at a distance from your range, oven, heating vents, and stove. This is because heat can react with the minerals in the oil, changing the molecular composition of the oil and possibly causing it to deteriorate fast. The L in HALT stands for light. So how does lighting affect storing CBD oil? Research has shown that exposure to light is the most significant contributor to cannabinoid deterioration. When you're shopping for CBD oil, you can give yourself a good advantage by examining the packaging. Some CBD oils are sold in bottles that are designed to reduce the exposure of light. For instance, amber glass bottles provide excellent UV protection. When shopping for CBD, always look for the bottle that's labeled amber or UV protection or sun protected if it's not in the box. Storing it in a clear container is likely to promote the changing of colors very quickly. Take a look at this example of some New Phase Blends distributor samples that got exposed to an LED lamp left on over light. While the oil still remains safe, who would want to see these weird neon colored oils? I know I wouldn't. So if they're turning different colors, store your CBD in a dark place. And finally, the T in HALT stands for time. When you store your CBD, you can expect to reach a shelf life of up to around 2 years. Most people should consume their products by then, but that's just an example of how long you can actually store it. The total shelf span of the product will differ depending on the process of manufacturing and ingredients involved. Proper storage makes the difference between products that last 6 months or 2 years. The time factor can obviously not be avoided. I wish it could, but it can't be. But the shelf life can be extended if you follow these tips for storing CBD oil. Without getting too deep into the extraction process, there was one method of extraction that provides a shorter shelf life than others, and it's ethanol. It's been around for the longest amount of time, but it's definitely not the best method and can lead to a reduced shelf life when storing CBD oil. While it remains a high-quality method, extraction using ethanol may produce oil that contains contaminants like chlorophyll, which results in the reduction of shelf life of CBD products. We don't use ethanol extraction, we use supercritical CO2, so you're safe there. And that about wraps it up. Keep HALT, H-A-L-T, in mind when you're storing your CBD oil. If you keep these factors in mind when you're storing your CBD products, you can't go wrong. Thankfully, it's a pretty simple product to store, and the shelf life can reach over 2 years if stored properly. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're not already, and also give us your email in the embedded forms on our webpage, either in the blog or on the footer, so we can send you out some of the best discounts and exclusive information on CBD products that you literally cannot find anywhere else.